Glynn, it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to discuss with you. I believe that this interview will inspire many companies to do a more impactful and useful business. So let me start with how we met, because we know each other. I saw you for the first time at the Global Forbes event, where you were one of the speakers interviewed by Randall Lane, CEO of Forbes. You were talking about your experience with working on campaigns with global brands such as Virgin, Google, The Guardian, Santander, BBC, and others. These campaigns were very successful, with amazing engagement of consumers that we can count in millions. Congratulations. That highlights the fact that you have mapped and you understand the inner motivation of consumers when it comes to making purchase decisions. So my first question is, what role does sustainability play in purchase decisions of consumers? Do they place greater value on products with a positive impact?
So I think it's an excellent question, because it's something that every business in the world today should be asking themselves if they're not already, and that is a reappraisal of what do their products stand for. Mm-hmm. So we've seen an increase in trend, and particularly from the times that we've come through with all of the social issues that are happening right now around the world. It's becoming increasingly more important to a consumer that the product they're purchasing has created a positive footprint and a positive impact. And what do we mean by that? I think it's the case that you can look at purchase and consumer spending decisions all around the world as trends, and you'll see an increased trend in different markets that a consumer is far more likely to buy a product if they can see that that product has been created ethically, created with the end user in mind in helping their life in some way, and actually holds to them the values that they feel are important in life right now, which is really about helping other people and showing how a business can do that, but also be a success at the same time.
You are saying that a product that is genuinely useful leads to loyalty and growth. Could you explain what do you mean by useful product? Can you share with us 3 simple examples?
So that's a perfect way of thinking around how somebody creates a product in the first place. Is traditionally somebody is having a great idea and they think this sounds like a fantastic product. And all too often they're doing it from the reverse engineering ideal, which is they start developing the idea they have, they start testing it, they start adapting it to the market. Whereas really what we should be doing is starting with how do we solve a problem an end consumer has. And when we start product development from that cycle of what is the problem that exists already in the world and how can I create a product that might solve that problem, we're automatically making it useful. Some examples of that would be one campaign that I created, which was with Google, which was a digital skills initiative. And very obviously, you know, Google's business model is driven by advertising around the world, but it's not particularly a great thing if somebody in the world gives you a call and says, hey, would you like to place some adverts with me? Because I think it's a great idea. Mm-hmm. And I realized that there was this growing trend that businesses from the medium to smaller end around the world had actually a few barriers that people weren't addressing to why they weren't going online in the first place. And the first one of those that I observed was that businesses didn't know how to go online, so they didn't have the skill set. The second one was there was a perception that it was too expensive for them. Mm-hmm. And the third one was, well, this is just going to take too much of my time. So we started developing a series of digital resources and tools that were all focused around how did you make it so easy for the end consumer, in this case the SME, how do you make it so easy for a small business to go online that actually they can't afford not to. So we created a series of digital skills, tools and resources that in turn helped businesses get online. One of the prospects was educating businesses that you can get a website within 15 minutes. And that translated into millions more SMEs going online in the first place, and thereby millions more SMEs in the pipeline of businesses that Google is supporting and has access to. Mm-hmm. So that was an example of a really great ecosystem created from the back of a large corporate being able to recognize that they can have a positive impact in the lives of the businesses and the consumers that they're serving to support. And I suppose if I was to give any other examples, the second one would be a learning company. And loosely, I guess all of these things are around where an individual consumer is learning something new. That might be learning how they're solving a problem or learning how they're addressing something in their life. So a learning company that I work with called Rewise actually realized that they were taking on the problem that every individual learns differently. So when you're a child in school, some people prefer to receive information as audio, some prefer to learn visually, and some prefer standard ways of learning in classroom style formats. But different people's retention is at different rates, and it definitely isn't a one-size-fits-all learning format in the world. So Rewise recognized that they could create phonics for learning, which is using sounds and audio and songs and music to translate that into ways where young people could better have retention of lines they were learning of Shakespeare, which they could learn through music instead, or ways that they could address their examinations. And they created this beautiful package of support at different types of audio-based learning that is now translated into many other products, including building cars in schools where they make models of cars and they learn how to program those using an app on a phone, because actually then what they're covering off are all of the individual STEM subjects and the arts, because they're decorating those products at the end. And it really does address a very vital need, which is inspiring people to learn in a new way, where actually they're not even realizing they're learning because they're enjoying it so much. So that's a fantastic example of a great product. And even then, the attention to detail is that, you know, the wood that goes into making those products, that's the cars themselves, is all from sustainable sources, and it's a full, nice circular economy-based business model. And I suppose the final one really would be a more recent example. During the times we've gone through with COVID-19, you've seen banks around the world trying to step up to to meet the needs of what consumers are actually doing, and that is that obviously there's been a huge reduction in size of global economies, but actually, you know, one bank initiative I've seen in particular has done a neighbourhood scheme program where they've actively been creating digital tools and resources that allow people in a local area to more effectively learn about and connect with the businesses in that local area, so they can support local. They can support small businesses and small enterprises, and obviously thereby in turn they're spending more money, which is great for the banking system overall. But that's another example of somebody creating a product which facilitates trade, and that also then facilitates loyalty and growth in their own consumers.
Yeah. You also mentioned that from the long-term point of view, if we want to convert global business to become more sustainable, it's not enough for companies to just do what they did before. You say that they have to proactively demonstrate and transparently communicate their impact they are making. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, businesses have been very protective of the way that they've evolved their products and services. A lot of it comes down to intellectual property, and a lot of it comes down onto a very old-fashioned mantra of only communicate what you need to. And I think we've entered a new era of transparency where a consumer demands knowing what's in their product. Whether that's you know, the milk you're buying in a supermarket and knowing whether it's from free-range animals or caged animals versus the entire supply chain process of what the packaging itself is made of. Consumers are quite rightly so becoming far more interested in what their product has, how their product has evolved, and what their product contains. And that can be a food product, which is obviously the biggest example in the entire ecosystem to look at right now, or it can be a service itself, which is that, you know, what are the reasons and ethics behind why a service is created and what it stands to do. We're seeing around the world governments reacting to this change in consumer shifts, which is that in the technology world, you can see quite stark examples of different governments around the world actually banning different types of applications made by people where they believe that the data sharing is infringing on the rights of individuals. So that just goes to show that ethics really plays a complete vital role in the core of your product development, because if you're a developer and you're creating an application and you're not thinking in the first place around what that end consequence could be in the life of an end consumer, you might be that person that sees your application banned by a government. So, you know, it really is that people are demanding transparency, and businesses are able to think about this at every part of their supply chain. It's about taking a look at your sustainability across what you do and thinking, how is this useful in someone's life? What is my motivation behind it? How am I going to be perceived as doing what I do? And why do people want it and why do they need it? And asking yourselves those evaluation points across every part of your supply chain will really pay dividends to your business at the end of the day, because that's what consumers are demanding more and more and more. And the emphasis is now on companies to ensure they communicate that clearly, transparently, and effectively and in a timely manner to the consumer.
As you already know, at Smarted we run a project called DSI Care, where leaders share their messages about how they support sustainability in professional and private life. Can you share with us your Yes I Care message, Glynn?
I think, first of all, Yes I Care is a fantastic campaign, because it really is making a bold statement from everybody that, you know, we're one united force when it comes to wanting to be more sustainable, wanting to be more ethical, and wanting to show consumers really that actually our businesses can help them. And I think that's a fantastic campaign overall. The part for me, I guess, personally and professionally, in my personal life, it's as you've outlined, really, as a consumer, I am much more proactive in looking at the products I buy and I purchase. First of all, I think that's from a very conscious level of, you know, how much packaging is included in my product. Is all of that packaging necessary? What am I doing? What's my impact personally if I'm buying something that contains so much more packaging than I need? And indeed, what can I do to ensure that the footprint of that is reduced afterwards? But in my personal life, that's an ongoing thing now. And I guess because I'm somebody that works in this world of sustainability in general, I'm much more conscious around the impact of what I do and what that creates. And I'm very analytical in looking at lots of other products. So I'm always looking at, you know, what is somebody saying in the marketing versus what does that translate to in reality. And I think that becomes a healthy thing, that if we as consumers are challenging the brands that we are purchasing more, it creates a much healthier environment for developing a much better ecosystem overall. And in my professional life, you know, it's something that is applied to every project I do. My latest project is working in developing a new alcohol brand, and that's focused around circular economy, which is that we reuse all of the waste that we create as a byproduct from making that alcohol. The alcohol is a mezcal, the product is called Kiko Mezcal. And as a product, it's created around a whole basis of storytelling. So even the name itself comes down to the social impact ethos around, or the social ethos, I should say, around how that drink is developed in the country it's from, which is Mexico, which is that the word Kiko means a quick kiss. And when you ask someone how they should drink a mezcal, in Mexico, they'll answer with quick kisses. So, you know, we have this kind of really nice piece of storytelling to our product development that also translates to even the label on the bottle is made from the fibers of the plant that you're drinking the liquid of inside the bottle. So, you know, the whole full circular economy piece for us is then translated into how do we do storytelling for a consumer, and that is that the consumer themselves is able to even track the geo-coordinates of the location of where the plant was grown that made the drink that they're then consuming at the end of the day, and engage with, indeed, everybody across our supply chain, learning about the person that made it and their family and what impact the drink is having on their lives. So that idea that we started with in this conversation of storytelling really is something that I try and observe throughout everything I do in my own professional life and my own projects. And it's something I definitely want to apply even more so going forward. And I think that as long as everybody realizes that sustainability is not traditional CSR, it's not just using something to offset a tax payment that a major corporate may have. Yes, those are efficiencies that people can look to move around internally, and definitely there are tactics they can deploy maybe to their advantage with different government credits around the world. But actually it's time for businesses to start realizing that sustainability is something at the core of their profitability. And I hope this is a trend that we're going to see more to come as the world develops.
Oh, it was very inspiring, yes, your message. Thank you so much for these words, insightful words. Glynn, it was my big pleasure to have this fruitful conversation with you about how we can build a bridge between traditional and modern business, because this is the new way how we can create more sustainable business, which is also more impactful, more useful, and more sustainable. I believe that your inspiring thoughts, experiences with also big brands such as Google, Virgin, will inspire more companies to create more useful products and services for their consumers and customers. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.